Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with Transformation Facilitator, coach, speaker, podcaster, and creator of the Thriving Life Method, Heather Stewart. She is a dynamic force in the wellness world who seamlessly marries her background in corporate finance with her fervent dedication to holistic health to help guide transformative coaching experiences for all of her clients. Heather found her own escape from the societal expectations of a career at the expense of health and vitality, and now helps other midlife women do the exact same thing. Using her Thriving Life Method framework, she helps overwhelmed overachievers connect to their inner purpose so they can intentionally create a new roadmap to a life they were meant to live. We cover it all from her base in Toronto, Canada. Enjoy this conversation.
It's great to meet you. I love the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for taking a minute out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of levels of calamity across the planet, 6 years ago, this pandemic changed so many things about our lives. I'm curious, how did you make it through that time, and how has it changed the way that you live and work in 2026?
That's a super interesting question, because when the pandemic hit, I had not been in the coaching for very long. I was actually focusing on business coaching at the time, because my former career as a CPA, I had all this great, business and knowledge and experience. And I had become a massage therapist. So here where I am, massage therapy takes a couple of years of school and you have to be licensed by the government. You are part of the medical system. And I was working away at massage and saw all these massage therapists and healthcare workers who were really good at helping people, but really not so great at taking care of themselves or their businesses. So I was doing this business coaching and COVID hit, and my main income at the time was actually still massage therapy, treating people. And my initial reaction was so different than what it would be today, but I had this oh my God, how am I going to get through this? Thankfully, I have a really amazing partner who was like, it's fine, we'll be fine. And I started going for walks every day. It was part of my way of dealing with it. Started, getting into things, studying personal development stuff that I'd been putting off because I was taking care of all of my clients and everyone else. And I was not able to work for, I feel like it was about 6 months that they wouldn't let us work because of the proximity of being with other people. And then there were really strict guidelines when we came back to work. And about a year into the pandemic, I actually had a stroke, which was so shocking because,
wow,
yeah, I was like the epitome of health. I had left the corporate world to go into health and wellness. I was a corporate finance executive. I had all the things you're supposed to have, and I just left it all behind, started teaching yoga and became a personal trainer, helping fitness, and, I was this super healthy person. And I had a stroke, and because it was during COVID, the hospital had no beds available, so I spent 3 days in the emergency room over Halloween weekend in a midtown big city hospital. So it was a very interesting experience, let's just say. Yeah. But it was so fascinating because the stroke wasn't, I actually did a PSA shortly after because it didn't have any of the symptoms they tell you to watch for. In fact, it was 12 hours before I even went into the hospital because I didn't think there was anything wrong. And it was another 12 hours before they realized that I'd had actually 2 strokes. And what happened was it had affected my vision. That was the main symptom that I had. And so when I'm in the emergency room, you're not allowed to have visitors because it's COVID. You can't go anywhere. I couldn't use my phone. People escape into their social media and the scrolling when something's happening they don't like. But because of the double vision, I couldn't see properly. So I'm 3 days. I call it my 3-day silent retreat. So I had the blessing of 3 days of sitting with absolutely nothing to do but sit and watch and listen and think. And that was when I realized that I was fine. I was like, I'm fine. I'm actually fine. You know, the world isn't ending right now. I am healthy. I knew that I was healthy. The neurologist told me that what was going on, and he said because I was so healthy, it could have the blood clot that went to my brain could have been there for ages, and because I had a completely blocked artery in my right carotid, he said it could have been there for ages, but because you're so healthy, it didn't affect your brain. It just happened a blood clot broke off and went to your brain. So I knew I was in the right place for what was going on. So I was like, okay, I'm fine. Everything's fine. And then I'm watching what's going on outside. I was like, okay, I'm doing this business coaching to help people get themselves to a place of more wellness for themselves. And I'm watching the people in the emergency room coming and going. I was like, business is only such a small piece of their lives. So this is where I had a podcast right after I got out of the hospital that went for 4 years called Back to Me. It was like, I need to help people get their whole life aligned so that when I felt super blessed, I'm like, I'm in the hospital and I feel like I'm fine. Financially, I'll be okay. My health is great. Emotionally, I'm really good. My community is sending me voice messages because they know I can't see my phone, so they're sending me voicemails. I'm like, I feel amazing. Even though I've had a stroke, I'm like, I have complete trust that this is the right thing. And I realized I needed to expand how I was helping people. So my COVID experience, some people would see it as a negative, but I'm like, no, it was a blessing because it helped open up more of what I'm really meant to do and help people in a bigger way. Long answer to a short question.
No, and you knocked a lot of dominoes down, and I think that's wonderful. I think we all need resets, and the fact that, and I've heard this before from a lot of different professionals, that, you know, there's a lot of straws you can grab out when you go through a calamity like that, but to decide to dedicate yourself to helping others, I think that's one of the more valorous things that we can do as human beings. And with that being said, I'm curious, if I put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds right now at Career Day, and one of the kids wanted a synopsis of what you do for a living, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that I help people who feel unhappy and they don't know why, and they know that they're meant to be happy and they want to be happy. I help them figure out what it is they can't see. That, you know, it's like when you're in the woods, I would tell these little kids, it's like you're in the woods and there's trees everywhere. If you step out of the woods, you can see it's a forest. It's contained. It's like you can see the patterns. You can see what it is. But when you're in it, it's like, God, this is too confusing. You have to get a pull-out view of your life and help them figure out where the next best step for them is to move where they want to go. Sometimes they don't even know where they want to go, but sometimes we have to go to that spot first. But if they know where they want to go, we can figure that out.
Absolutely. I think a byproduct of that is just being alive on this planet for a while. I think everything gets buried. There's so many different experiences. You have to unravel your childhood and all of these ways that you have developed into who you are. It's just not an easy thing. And I think the advent of having a coach help people get there is almost more essential now than ever in the way the world is.
It is, and it's so interesting. I can remember I had my own yoga studio for almost 10 years. And a woman I met who told me she was a life coach, and this was probably 15 or so years ago, and I was like, what is a life coach? I didn't even know what it was. It didn't even seem like a real job to me at the time. So it's kind of comical. It's kind of comical that I'm like, oh, I get it. And I feel like this is what I was meant to do, because even when I was doing massage, people would come to me for a massage just so they could talk to me for an hour, because I would listen and I would ask them questions. And at the end, yes, they had their massage, but I think they were mentally more clear. And I thought at one point, let's just skip the massage. Why don't we just have a conversation?
For sure. And I think a level of that is like therapy, because there's this buildup, I think, with therapy sometimes, that it's this, and there's just such a mental buildup to how it's going to work. And I think with coaching, it's a little bit more less threatening,
Right.
so to speak, maybe.
Yeah.
I remember a good friend of mine about 15 years ago said the same thing. He was like, you know what, I think I found out what I'm going to do in life. I'm going to be a coach. Okay, and I'm like, well, what sport are you going to coach? You know, what are you going to do? I didn't know. You're right? And he's like, no, I'm going to be a life coach. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? What are you going to do? Like, I kept asking questions, but now the prevalence of that level of coaching is all over the place, and it's interesting.
Well, it's funny because sometimes I Google to look up coaching resources, or, you know, I go into Google keywords to look at what people are searching, and you still get a lot of, they just think you're a sports coach, but it's shifting.
It certainly is, yeah. And I know that my vernacular has really expanded, doing lots of interviews with coaches, and there's so many wonderful things that are happening with people that are very necessary. So let me ask you this. When you were 12 years old in that career day classroom, dreaming of your life and what you were going to do, what was your dream job?
Not coaching. And it's funny because when I was little, I was going to be an artist and a veterinarian. And I was very shy. So I was very shy. Animals were safe. Animals loved me. Art was great because I was, you know, my grandmother was an artist, and I really enjoyed painting, and I'm actually an artist as well now. It never left me. And I always joked that, you know, I was an artist and I wanted to be an artist and a veterinarian. And then the safe route became CPA. I was like, well, okay, that didn't really work out. And instead of being a veterinarian, I became a massage therapist so I could help living beings. But I matured enough to understand I wanted to help human beings.
So let's go back to your beginnings. Are you from Toronto originally?
No, I'm from a small place down on the St. Lawrence River, kind of across from Ogdensburg, New York. And okay. Nobody's ever heard of it. So it only had 20,000 people, but it was a great place to grow up.
So take me back to your beginnings. What were the seeds that were planted that eventually led you to wanting to take care of people, to be this liaison to help people find themselves and have that capacity of giving back? What were the early seeds and examples that led and evolved into who you are today?
Well, you know, my parents were quite young. My mom was only 20, and my dad was 21 when they started having kids. And so I was, you know, the first child, and they were like, oh my gosh, this is a baby. What do we do with this thing? And so we spent a great deal of time at my mother's parents, my grandparents. And I can remember my grandfather. They were the most amazing grandparents. I mean, they came from the UK. They were English. My mom was born in England. And they came through the war, and they came to Canada to build a better life for their kids. And they were just so kind and loving. I mean, British grannies, you don't misbehave, but, you know, they were very kind and loving. And my grandfather was a very quiet man. But so wise, and he taught me so many things. So I had those grandparents as my base. And she died apparently when I was about 3. But I can remember my father's mother, my grandmother on my other side. My mother once said about her, she said she was the kind of lady who would come into your house, and no matter what was going on, she would be happy, and she would say, let me help you, because, you know, you have, and my parents eventually had 4 kids running around. It's like, let me help you clean the kitchen. She wouldn't criticize you. She wouldn't say anything. She was very non-judgmental. And I do have really early memories of her, and I think that she was, and her, the legend of her, maybe to say, really influenced me because of the way my mom talked about her mother-in-law that way. And so grandparents are such a huge influence, really.
So the other thing that you tapped into is just being kind, being nice to people. And in our lives, there's these moments where people are kind, whether it's a stranger, even someone that we do know well. Do you remember a moment like that where someone was really nice to you and it almost shifted the trajectory of how you approach life, the way that you looked at things? Did you ever have a moment like that?
I had a grade 3 teacher who I loved, and this is a funny memory because I haven't thought about it in a long time. Because I was so shy and, tried to avoid drawing attention to myself, so we were going into, kids are crazy, right? So we're all cramming, recess is over, and we're all piling back into the school. And I don't know if it was intentional or by accident, but someone hit me, and I started crying. my grade 3 teacher, Mrs. Barkley, she's passed away at this point because she was elderly then. She was just so kind and took such nice care of me and made me feel like I was important in this sea of children. And it's like, okay, this one child is having a problem. I'm going to take care of her. The other kids are fine. And I didn't want her to, call out who hit Heather. But I was just like, just the attention that she paid to me was, I think, it was so appreciated in a way that, when you're that young, you don't really realize until later when you look back on it.
That's a great story. So let me ask you this. You mentioned having a podcast and interviewing and having guests on. If you could interview or have a lunch or hang out with one human on the planet right now that you find inspirational or amazing, that might help you in your coaching and your personal journey, who would you love to meet and talk to?
Do they have to be alive right now?
No, they could be a ghost. They could be one or the other.
Because I have a long list of dead people I'd like to talk to.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I just returned yesterday from a 10-day silent meditation retreat where you go into this community. They have the residences and it's free. This is another thing. Like the giving of this group is amazing. And we spent 10 days, probably 9 to 10 hours a day meditating in silence. And, I'm with 100 people there. Nobody's speaking to anybody. They're just inside contemplation. And one of the things that they practice is a loving kindness meditation at the end of their main meditation. And this was the teachings of Gautama Buddha, which Buddhism, so I have nothing against Buddhism. Let me just say that first. But Buddhism, the way it's structured as a religion now, has a lot of rites and rituals that weren't the original teachings of the Buddha. And when you strip out all that to the original teachings, that's what I was doing. I would love to talk to the Buddha. Like, seriously, because he was just a regular guy. And he figured a bunch of stuff out on how to live a happier life. I'm like, I want to talk to him.
You know what's interesting about that? I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, and it tends to be the Bible Belt. And early on growing up, I didn't grow up in a theologically rich environment, but I got into Christianity as a teenager and then later kind of adapted more realistic modalities and those kinds of things and really kind of explored other religions. But I remember the first time I went to California, I was in my early 20s, and like the Gideon's Bible in California, in this region, they had the Book of Buddha in the side table. I still have it. I read it, and it just felt comfortable. It felt right. It didn't feel so dire. It really broke down our reality in a way of like, just, watch the leaf fall from the tree and gently go into the stream and imagine that leaf going down the stream. Those things that would mentally bring you some kind of solace in a different way than other religions do. And I remember feeling so comforted by Buddhism at that early stage of my development in life.
Right. And it's so interesting. Like, Buddhism the Buddha said, like, don't be a jerk. So, like, don't do bad things. Live a good life, do good things. Don't do bad things. Do good things. Pay attention to your reactions to things. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So don't overreact. Don't do bad things. Do good things. Gain wisdom. That's it. Cut and dried. There it is. And it's so simple. And yet it takes people years to develop it. And I wonder sometimes if it's all of the stuff that happened to us as we were growing up in our conditioning of, your parents do their best, but they've got their conditioning, and school is structured this way because it's the best way we know how right now, but it also creates these things. And if we could step into some kind of, I don't want Pleasantville by any means, because contrast does help us see and grow, but to somewhere where we don't let contrast get so far as we get to the way the world is right now.
Totally agree. So well said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious, being a coach, you have to walk through some murky waters of the human condition. And in that process, when that alarm clock goes off in the morning, what motivates you to not only do your job at a high level, but to ground yourself in that murkiness and take care of your own soul at the end of the day?
Well, I have had a daily sitting practice for over 20 years. So I know that my personal, I take an hour and a half to 2 hours in the morning by myself before I do anything. I need to do my meditation. I need to have my cup of tea. I need to just, fully arrive in the morning. And then I'm excited to just share. Really, a lot of what I do is just, I'm not judging anyone for where they are. You are where you are. Let's just say, okay, that's fine. No, but it's not bad or good. It's just where you happen to be. And let's see if we can find a different way if you want something different. So being that in that space myself where, my life's not perfect. I mean, God, I make mistakes all the time. But I recognize them and I correct them faster, I'm more and more able to that. And I can stay in a place of that equanimity, like the Buddha equanimity. I can see a reaction coming in myself and I can go, hold on. Well, I mean, in my own life, it's funny. I don't usually react in my clients' lives when they get into that murky stuff because I am so curious as to what's happening for them and how's that affecting them. But I will say, one time I was coaching a woman and she was Mormon, and she was leaving her husband and taking her children, and she was trying to leave the church. And I worked really hard to stay neutral.
Yeah.
Because of some of the stuff that she told me, I thought, that's not how you treat a human being. Period. Yeah. And but I stayed calm and neutral and just helped her navigate it.
So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, you ran into the 18-year-old version of you, and you walked up to that version of you, and you had a big coffee table book in your hands, and it was the synopsis of the life that you've lived so far, and you handed it over, would that young version of you believe that your life has turned out the way it has?
Not a chance. The 18-year-old me, not a chance. When I was 18, my long-term partner, I'd been with this partner for 4 years, was a narcissist. I didn't even think that I was smart enough to, do anything. I just, it's interesting how you get programmed. And then you have to reprogram yourself to realize, hold on, I am really smart. And he's not allowed to tell me what to do and who to hang out with. And let's rejig this whole scenario. So
yeah. Would you give that young version of you any advice?
Don't be afraid to take up space.
Yeah. So, of everything that you've accomplished and evolved to at this point in your life, what are you ultimately the proudest of or the happiest about?
Oh my gosh. Because I don't think about being proud of things very often. I'm just super happy that I've got all this, that I'm in this. You know what? I'm proud that I have reached the place where I can share my voice in a way that feels authentic without fear, and that it can create clarity for people. That's
wonderful.
What I'm proud of.
Yeah. So when that big, huge word retirement flashes in your mind, What do you think about? What does that make you think?
It's like a foreign word. Well, if you think about it, I'm on my third-ish career, 3.5 maybe, and I just turned 59, and I think, well, I'll just do this until I don't want to do it anymore, and there's no reason not to. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's funny because I'm a Nordic, so I still work in the fitness world, so I still teach yoga, and I teach a yoga and Tai Chi fusion class. And I also teach this Nordic walking, which is quite, actually, look it up, people. Nordic walking is so beneficial. And I have this 83-year-old psychologist, and he's still working as a psychologist, and he wanted me to teach him Nordic walking. I'm like, wow, he's 83, he's still working. Why wouldn't I just keep working until, my brain stops working, which maybe is never if I keep using it.
So, at the end of the day, Heather, everyone has a perception. You family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone that knows you in all your various capacities, that you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm the strong, silent type. So it's funny because I also lead kayak trips into Georgian Bay. So I am like the unintentional leader. I never come in intending to lead anything, but people tend to look to me, even in my family, tend to look to me for an answer. And I didn't realize it until I was working as an accountant. And one day my manager called me and he said, "Will you come to my office?" And I said, "Sure." And we had a conversation and I said, "What did you want?" He said, "Nothing. I just wanted to ask you some questions and have you cheer me up a little bit." I'm like, okay. And I left. So I feel like I'm unaware of how people view me as a leader, but I've noticed it more and more. And I feel like now is the time for me to accept it but not change how I approach it. I'm not going to walk into somewhere and say, "I know what to do best." I'm going to just walk in and wait until someone asks me what I think should happen.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. If you could get into a time machine and either go back in time and see one event in human history or go into the future, say 10 or 20 years from now, where would you go? What would you love to see with your own eyes? And it wouldn't create a tear in time or anything weird. You would just be able to witness it.
Nothing weird to happen?
No back to the future scenario. Yeah.
Okay. So in 2023, I went to Egypt because it was somewhere that I'd wanted to see since grade 8. When they found King Tutankhamun, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fascinating. So I've been always fascinated. And I went in 2023. Funny, another story from that is we also went to Jordan and I fell in the desert and broke my wrist. That was an adventure. Going through the hospitals in Jordan, oh my God, it was so much fun. People thought it was so terrible that I broke my wrist on vacation. I'm like, no, you should see the stuff that I got to do. So I would go back and see how I went to the temple in Karnak. You can't tell me that they just, rolled those on logs and ropes and things. I'm like, no way, man. That thing is so huge. We don't have stuff now that could move that. I want to see how they did that. As long as it doesn't create a problem,
No, it won't. It won't. And what's interesting about that? I was listening to a podcast earlier on last year, and they were talking about this book called The Chariot of the Gods. Have you heard of it?
I have heard of it, yeah.
Okay, so they made a TV series, and the whole idea of it is, and I think it seemed hokey at the time, that people are more and more believing it. The theory is that an advanced race of alien, whether they were human hybrid or whatever, came from the future to save us. So all these remnants, from the pyramids to the Mayans to all of these different structures that were left behind in antiquity, that no one with any modern engineering brain can even say was possible then. All of these things lead up to the fact that a future version of us knew that we were getting to a point where there was a level of annihilation, and they were trying to help us. So
right.
I think about all of those things with the pyramids and all of that and wonder, what advanced race could have been a part of it, because I've never, ever talked to anybody that went there that was like, yeah, they had something. They came up with something to do it. All I've ever heard is there's no possible way that any human being did that. No way.
Well, and what's funny is I have a subscription to Gaia TV. So if you watch Gaia TV, aliens did it. Well, some of them think aliens did it. Like they have it's like Netflix for the metaphysical world. So there's a lot of interesting shows on there. But also interesting is the human race has a lot of hubris, right? We think that we are the most advanced race right now we have ever been. But we don't know if we didn't annihilate ourselves previously. And it took us that long to come back to where we are now. Like we think we're the first time this has ever happened. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe we could go back and check that.
That would be interesting. I think about Carl Sagan, how he divvied up our timeline, and we are such an absolute teeny tiny, infinitesimally small speck in the whole equation of things. So there's no way that our egos could not be in check to be like, there's got to be other things, because it's not like there's a wall in space. Like, oh, sorry, folks, space ends right here. It's like it's this infinite expanse of space, time, and different celestial bodies. So anyway, that's a whole other rabbit hole. But I've always found that idea of Egypt and the pyramids to be a part of that. What are we really all about? Because I think it knocks on the door of antiquity really loud and clear.
You should go if you haven't gone. I'm telling you. It's amazing.
I should what?
You should go and visit. Go and visit.
I so want to. Yeah, my thirst for adventure and wonder is off the charts, so I definitely need to do it for sure.
Yeah.
So for anybody out there that wants to reach out, they want change, they want to ask you questions or hire you, any of the good business, where do they go?
So my website is heatherstewart.coach, easy peasy. And I also want to say, like right now, people think I'm crazy, but I'm offering people 1 hour with me on Zoom mostly, unless they really can't do Zoom. But I just take them through the first steps of how I help people. And at the end of the hour, I say to them, okay, this is where I think you're stuck. Some people, that's enough. And some people want more. But I offer that for free. 1 hour with me to just I call it the alignment activation. Like, get yourself aligned, and let's just start it up.
And no better time than now with the new year, so I will make sure to put those links in the show notes. What a joy. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.